Stop using helocs to pay off your credit card debt because this is one of the riskiest things that you can do. It's very trendy right now to take out a heloc and use it to pay off your credit cards, your student loan, maybe even a car loan, or try to pay off your house with a second lien heloc. Let's define some terms real quick. So first lien heloc, this is a heloc that is in place of your mortgage. So this type of heloc would essentially pay off your mortgage, and then any equity up to usually 80% of the value of your home would be available for you to spend. Second lien or second position HELOC is in addition to your mortgage. So you have your mortgage balance and then you have your home's appraisal or your home's value. With a second lien HELOC, you can borrow above your mortgage up to, again, usually 80% of your home's value. Here's why I don't recommend them to pay off credit card debt. Credit card debt is unsecured debt. If you use a credit card to buy a cheeseburger, after you buy the cheeseburger is gone. It's not an asset. This is why interest rates are so high on credit cards, is because they have to weigh the risk of lending you money for unsecured debt. If you don't pay it back, they have nothing to come and get. There is no more cheeseburger. So what they do instead is they charge you interest, they'll charge you fees, they'll tank your credit score in the meantime, but they'll give you sometimes up to a year to figure it out. They are almost always willing to work with you. With unsecured debt, the consumer has so much more control, and I can't stress that enough. This is unsecured debt. Eventually, they stop lending to you and they sell your debt to a collection agency. Secured debt. So this is a house, a car, a boat. There is an asset that they can come and take if you default, and they do. They don't give you a year to figure it out. They just come repossess the asset. In Missouri, you can be sent a notice that you are in default and in danger of repossession after you've been in default for 10 days. I've worked with many people who have had cars repossessed, and it's not fun. There's no grace period. It's also normal to have a house foreclosed on after 4 missed payments in Missouri. When there is an asset involved, the consumer has almost no power, no control over the situation. The lenders are so much less likely to work with you. This is one of the reasons that HELOCs are generally easier to obtain than a regular line of credit as long as you have substantial equity, because there's so much more security for the lender. With a HELOC, you are borrowing against something that they can take back if you default. People don't see it this way. They see it as a quick fix to get out of credit card debt, and they don't weigh the risk of if something goes wrong, if we lose a job, if we have health problems, car accident, whatever, if something goes wrong, really wrong, we now have to make this HELOC payment in addition to our mortgage, or we risk losing the house. Especially if someone has car payments, student loans, a mortgage, and then they take out a HELOC to pay off all of their credit card debt. If something happens and now they have to choose who gets paid, they are in trouble. If they don't pay the car payment, car repossessed, quick. It's 10 days in default and you are in danger of your car being repossessed. If you stop paying on your student loans, wage garnishment. This is not really known or talked about a lot with student loans, but they are not bankruptable. Depending on what type of student loan you have, if you default, they will garnish your wages. They will take it out of your paycheck. Student loans are gonna get paid. If you don't pay the mortgage, foreclosure. HELOC, same thing. After 4 months, they have to get paid as well. The transfer of risk from credit card to HELOC, from unsecured debt to secured debt, I will never shut up about this. And I think people get turned off by this message because they think, Jess doesn't believe I can do it. And that's not true. I actually believe that you can. It's everything that's not in your control that scares me. And here's the truth, because I'm not just a dream-crushing negative Nancy. For people that decide to take out a HELOC and pay off credit card debt, it would probably work out just fine for 9 out of every 10 people who do this. But that 1 out of 10, that one person who takes out a HELOC, pays off their credit card debt, they run their expenses back up, they've got late payments, they've got warnings, they're in default, disaster strikes, and we don't know who that 1 out of 10 is gonna be. It's a roll of the dice for you, and it's not worth it. Things outside of your control are going to happen. If you can pay the debt off with a HELOC, you can pay the debt off without the HELOC. And I see this all the time. And I think it's interesting as a financial coach, the clients that come to me, the people that are interested in coaching, the people that have problems with debt, they don't have problems with debt because everything went according to plan. They have problems with debt usually because things outside of their control went wrong. And as I dive deeper and deeper into velocity banking, I'm learning that the differences between the heloc and the regular line of credit, the differences are not talked about enough. The gigantic risk of adding to someone's secured debt needs to be spoken out about more. I want to pause just for a second and say thank you so much for those of you that have recently liked and shared my videos. Last month, I received over 1,000 video likes and over 200 video shares, which is just crazy to me. It really helps me and my videos when you do that. Thank you so much for your continued support and for liking and sharing this video. So if you've followed my story for a while, you will know that we actually took out a heloc. Am I a hypocrite? I'm not against using helocs. They are a tool. I'm for sure against using helocs to pay off unsecured debt. It really comes down to what are you using the heloc for? And that's true of any debt. We used ours to invest in real estate. We bought a cash flowing asset with our heloc. Still some risk involved. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it was a totally risk-free choice. Still risk, but the big difference is if something went sideways, if any of those emergencies happened that I listed off earlier, if anything happened, we could turn around and we could sell that asset. We could sell the investment property that we bought for more than what we bought it for because we bought it off market, and we would be totally fine. We would have wasted time, probably learned a lesson, but the risk was weighed and accounted for with a contingency plan. And a lot of times with using a heloc to pay off credit card debt, there is no contingency plan. There's just rose-colored glasses that see a shortcut to debt freedom. Trust me, I'm all for shortcuts. That's why I've got an entire playlist full of debt snowball versus velocity banking videos so that you can know the absolute fastest path to debt freedom. What I don't want you to do is put your house at risk along the way. Use regular personal lines of credit instead of home equity lines of credit. Are they harder to obtain? It really depends on your credit score and financial standing, but it also just depends on how hard you look. Here's some general rules of thumb for you when it comes to lines of credit to help you keep your risk as low as possible. And this is exactly what we're doing to use our HELOC to invest in real estate while being mindful of our risk. Number one, don't take out all of your equity or all of the cash that's available to you. When you have margin in your line of credit or in your HELOC, it is so much safer for you because now you've got a buffer in case of an emergency. If you take out every last penny that's available to you, you might be over leveraging yourself. And this is something I'm very aware of as we invest in real estate. We don't want to be over leveraged. We want equity, but we also want to have exit strategies, contingency plans, and options. Number two is lock in your rate. HELOC terms especially are insane. This is why it's so hard to even do a video on a HELOC because you always have disgruntled viewers that are like, well, my HELOC terms are different than the terms that you used in your video. When we get our statement for the HELOC, it's honestly a mess. Interest rates all over the place. Some are locked, some are not. I always recommend locking as much as you can. For us, it costs $100 every single time we lock and unlock our rates. It's messy. It's not as straightforward as a lot of other debt tools are, which is why with HELOCs, you especially have to stay on top of it and know your terms. Tip number three is to have an exit strategy. And I know I'm beating a dead horse with this, but it's so important. You cannot be caught with a debt like this upside down. This means that if the value of your home drops, the lender can ask for a reappraisal. And if the home comes back being worth less, what do you think happens? They might freeze your balance. They'll definitely lower your rate. And that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that in a housing market crash, you cannot just sell the house and get out of the situation. You're upside down. You owe more than what the house is worth. It's scary stuff. And I know everyone thinks it would never happen to me, but it does. Number four is to have an end date. When we took out our HELOC, it was for a very specific purpose of purchasing real estate. There is a start to that process and there is an end. Eventually, we will refinance out of our HELOC so that each individual property has its own mortgage and our house is back to being paid off. Have an end date. Have a plan for your debt tool if you're going to use one. Another great example of this would be when I purchased Bookkeeper Launch back in 2017. In order to start my business, I put that purchase on a credit card and I vowed that I would put every single dollar that I made from the business toward that purchase and pay it off. It was very calculated debt, and it was ultimately the best investment I ever made. I doubt that this video will get a lot of views, if I'm being perfectly honest, because it's so much easier to just stick your head in the sand and pretend like you didn't hear my dire warning. Because of that, I would absolutely love and appreciate it if you took the time to share this video to your social media or send it to someone specific if someone comes to mind. I want the best for all who follow my journey and my videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.